everybody, Stewart A. Swerdlow.
And Janet Diane Moria Swerdlow.
And this is the Expansion's nude pod. We'll start over.
No, don't start over. Leave it in. It's funny. Go ahead.
The Expansion's news podcast. It's so cold that my mouth isn't working. It's cold.
That's unusual for you. Usually your mouth works overtime.
I know. I think I'm going to have to move to a tropical area. Anyway, what is this? The middle of October 2014.
After our stellar conference, I should have to remind you.
Yeah,
last weekend.
It was a really great conference. I hope you're all going to watch the video, those of you who didn't attend. And even if you did attend, you should watch it again.
Yeah, there's lots of good information. So our pay-per-view, we're very excited to be able to bring this to you now.
And a lot of it was about aliens. And so my first story today, is about aliens, or maybe aliens, because this is from a NASA film, or I don't know, from a spacecraft orbiting the moon. And NASA said, let's say analysis of the NASA film was that a UFO was seen scoping out the surface of the moon.
NASA said that.
Well, they showed the film. And why would they show that if they didn't want to let people know that was going on? And so, according to this article, they might be whoever was up there was trying to scope out the Earth's colony. It says Earth's colonies. Now that's interesting, because we spoke about alien colonies on the Earth, and here it is in the media. And this is Huffington Post, so it's a conventional. On October 16th, an object spotted zipping along above the surface of the moon didn't move in straight lines like a satellite does. It was moving as if it was exploring the surface. And now it was analyzed by a former FBI agent named Ben Hansen, who said that the video was taken of an unknown object, and he also said that there's nothing to indicate that this was computer generated, so it was an actual object. Now, the International Business Times reported that there is a case for possible UFO based on the moon after the video was posted. So that's, again, this is all imprinting for the staged alien invasion. I mean, NASA will not release things like that unless they want people to
Absolutely.
see. Now, it says, it also said how many missions to the moon have there actually been with both lunar landings with people or with just surface rovers, and how many do you think?
I don't know, 0?
Now, you know there's been, well, I know it's Junior, but actually the answer is 200 missions. Wow. Can you imagine? So the website suggested that there has to be something up there to go so many times. They're looking at something. Back in 1968, a photo from an old lunar orbiter caught the image of a spaceship tucked into the bottom of the moon's Manilius crater. Remember, I think I posted that on our website about an object seen in the crater of the moon, but that was more recently. And here's something that was interesting, because Discovery News said that just recently, the first technology to make things seemingly disappear was developed on Earth. The device is called the invisible cloak. And so that means they could be flying around and hiding things, including drones and stuff like that. Don't you think that's interesting? Now, to switch gears a little bit, but it's actually kind of related, and that's Ebola.
I have Ebola news too. So
you have Ebola news?
I do. So if you have news,
I have a bowl of Ebola news.
Yeah,
do you have Ebola news?
I do. And if you have news that I don't.
Is it about this?
No.
Oh, then I can say it.
Yeah, you can say it, but no. But then I'll add mine on.
All right. Well, I have more than that, but
yeah, I have a bunch of it too.
See, we didn't coordinate before.
We never do.
No, we don't.
We don't have time.
I don't even know you were in the house.
That's right. You had to text me and find out where I was.
I know. Anyway, as you may have heard on the news, there was a cruise ship in the Caribbean who has an Ebola patient on it, and it was unable to dock at foreign tourist ports and is now heading back to Texas. One passenger said that there was an announcement of a woman's presence that has created utter panic on the Carnival Magic cruise ship.
And Carnival's had so many issues.
Yeah, I mean, look, they have so many other viruses on board. What's another one? People are scared, said the passenger, and I've seen people crying. The chaos started in the morning when there was an announcement on the ship's intercom saying, Now, why would they announce this on the intercom?
To create panic.
Yeah, that someone who worked in the lab who handled the person in Dallas's blood was on the ship. Oh, so they waited until the cruise was like towards the end, and then they announced it. And the cruise line said the woman is in isolation on board the ship. Well, big whoops, she's already been walking around all over the place for a week.
And usually they don't tell you anything. If anybody's sick on a ship, something like that, you never hear about it.
So this passenger said, you're using the same buffet line as someone else, the same waiters, the folks that clean the staterooms. If someone was cleaning their stateroom and then cleaned yours right afterwards, the exposure would be there in the elevators. They said it's very tight quarters. And then Thursday night, this is how the passengers knew something was up. The ship was supposed to leave Belize at 6 p.m. and it didn't. Carnival administrators were notified. Now listen to this. The Carnival ship administrators were notified by the Center for Disease Control and Prevention about a passenger's connection to the Dallas hospital on Wednesday evening, and they tried unsuccessfully to get her and her travel companion flown home from Belize on Thursday. Secretary of State John Kerry even personally called the Belize Prime Minister Dean Barrow, asking him to allow the passengers to be evacuated through the port, but was rebuffed. Kerry then suggested that an American helicopter could land on the cruise ship and transfer the passenger to an American medevac plane at Belize Airport, but that was also rejected. I say, good for you, Belize. I think that's great that there's a country that told the Americans, no, we're not going to allow you to contaminate another country, you know. And here's my prediction. I predict that within several weeks or months, the government of Belize will be overthrown or removed somehow. Now, here's the other thing. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention said the woman was low risk. Then why did you warn the ship? Because,
if there was even a woman on the ship, we all know it's...
No, it says at no point in time has the individual exhibited any symptoms or signs of infection, and it has been 19 days since she was in the lab with the testing samples, and the incubation period is 21 days. The ship did not receive clearance to dock in Mexico, which was the next port, and so they're heading back to Texas. And guess what Carnival Cruise is doing for their passengers?
Giving them free medical care.
Well, they're giving them $200 credit to spend on the ship during the remaining 2 days on board, and we're given a 50% discount on their next Ebola cruise.
Sounds like Carnival. No wonder they're having issues.
Here's another prediction. Carnival's going to sue the government.
Well, that's possible.
Yeah.
I need to tell my Ebola stories then.
Well, I have another Ebola story.
I didn't know you had more Ebola.
I want to tell my Ebola story.
We're just talking about that.
I know. Yes, I know. I was doing that on purpose.
Yeah, right.
She says I act like a child, but I don't. Mel, make her stop saying that. Anyway, what?
I didn't say a word.
Yeah, you will later. Anyway, here's the thing. Leading U.S. scientists warn that the deadly Ebola virus is already changing to become more contagious. There are fears that the deadly virus could mutate and become even more contagious. Dr. Peter Yarling says virus loads in patients is higher than expected, and new strain of Ebola may burn, in quotes, hotter and quicker. Okay, so really, because I think it's artificially enhanced, Ebola has been around for 30 years with no problem, so how can it mutate so fast after 30 years of being, just here and there?
That's really, what is it anyway, like we talked about, it's from the Ebola River.
In West Africa.
Right.
And yes, there are outbreaks here and there, but all of a sudden it's mutating.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
All of a sudden, after all these years.
It's like the West Nile virus after the Nile River, all this thing.
Okay, now this would mean that the disease would spread more easily. UK is stepping up Ebola checks with screening extended to airports like Manchester and Birmingham. But U.S. health experts say banning travelers entering the U.S. from affected region would be a bad idea. You know why it's a bad idea? Because then they have to reduce the fear. Mm-hmm. So, okay, there's a place where there's this supposed disease and people are coming here affected, but you're not going to stop people from coming there.
Yeah, that's part of my news too, because that's what I have. The head of the CDC said that it would be a bad idea to ban travel because he says people have a right to come and go. Plus, he says it would make it difficult to get medical supplies and aid workers to the affected regions in West Africa. Well, they're not going to go on conventional travel anyway.
So, then why can't we go to North Korea?
Yeah, the medical...
Why can't we go to Iraq?
The military is already putting people in there, so they don't have to go conventional.
They ban countries that have nothing to do with anything, but this one, where there really is something, or is there?
And then the other thing I wanted to mention, now they are doing the screening at the New York airport. JFK is now doing the Ebola screening.
Yeah, even in Chicago.
They have a thermostat that they can hold far away.
Yeah, and I showed you the picture yesterday. This guy in Chicago, he's wearing this mask and these glasses and gloves, but his sleeves are rolled up and there's nothing over here, so...
Or the top of his head.
Or the top of his head, so if there really was something, and then of course they have a black man sitting in front of him, breathing on him. So it could go in his hair, it could go on his arm, it can go through his clothes. It's a show. It's a big show, like they had when with that, what was it, in Asia, the SARS and the swine flu thing a few years ago. When I went to China, like they all had all the masks on and had a wand, and they were wanding people. Like, really? Come on.
I remember that other vaccine. It was smallpox that they tried to say was making a comebacks. That's what the doctors and the nurses were refusing to take the vaccines for.
And now they said that we are using tests that we weren't using in the past, but there seems to be a belief that the virus load is higher in these patients today than we've seen before. Yeah, they're using tests they haven't used in the past because then they can make people have it that don't have it, just like HIV. Do you know that you could have a test in Africa with HIV and be positive, and then take the same test in U.S. or Canada, you're not positive, because it's different calibration depending on the country, because they want certain people to have it. That's what I'll tell you. I want to make sure I don't confuse things here. Can I have one more Ebola story?
Yeah, no, I have one more, I think.
Do you have this one with the...
No.
Okay. Now, President Obama has named a new Ebola Tsar. Why do they use the term Tsar? You know what that means in Russian? King. So there's a king of Ebola now named in the United States. His name is Ron Klain. And a lot of people are upset about it. And that is because given the mounting failings in the Obama administration's response to the Ebola outbreak, it is right that the president has sought to task a single individual to coordinate its response. This is from Ed Royce, a Republican from California. And he's chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. But, he says, why the president didn't pick an individual with a noteworthy infectious disease or public health background? Why not?
What is this guy's background?
Well, according to this, Klain, a longtime political hand, served as chief of staff to here's the clue, Al Gore and Vice President Joe Biden.
So he did good jobs with those kind of...
And has no apparent medical or healthcare background. So I could have been appointed.
Well, then you'd be closer to emperor if you were king.
But here's the real reason from the White House. The White House official said Friday that Klain comes to the job with, quote, strong management credentials, extensive federal government experience overseeing complex operations, and here's the kicker, and good working relationships with Congress as well as senior Obama officials, including the president. So I'll translate, he's easily controlled and manipulated.
Or he can easily control and manipulate the media. That's what they want.
Yeah, and then another representative, Tom Rice of Georgia, said, who is a doctor himself, accused Obama of making an unserious gesture at an incredibly serious moment. Well, what else is new with Obama?
Yeah.
Okay, that's the end of my
Ebola
stories.
Okay, I have one Ebola story left. So I
do you want to do it with yours? Or?
Yeah, I want to do it with yours.
Oh, with mine? Go ahead.
I want to do it now because that ties in. This is a really good one. This is one that's titled Ebola.
Plural Ebola.
Ebola. Ebo and then lie.
Oh, like a lie about Ebola.
Yes, Ebola. Okay, and this actually, they claim this article is coming out of West Africa. And they have a bunch of people holding posters basically saying that it's a lie and this is why.
Yeah.
They said Ebola as a virus does not exist and it is not spread, and they claim that it is actually the Red Cross who brought the disease to 4 specific countries for 4 specific reasons. And it is only contracted by those who receive treatments and injections from the Red Cross, which makes sense.
Where did you see this?
This was, I have the link in my news, I don't remember, but...
That's the truth.
I believe it. And it was a good article. It says, this is why Liberians and Nigerians have begun kicking the Red Cross out of their country, and they're trying to report it in the news, but they don't have the platform. So they're trying to get the platform. And they said that most people believe it's about depopulation of the black people. And it says that cannot happen because they say that right now the Ebola claims they're killing 160 people a day.
Right.
But they say in Africa, thousands are born every day. So basically they're saying that 160 people a day is nothing compared to what the African population is doing. So they say there are other angles that are more realistic, but people are missing it, so they're bringing it to your attention.
Okay.
They're saying that the reason they implemented Ebola, it says the vaccine implemented sickness, that's what they call it. The vaccine implemented sickness is being called Ebola, was introduced into West Africa for the end goal of getting troops on the ground in Nigeria,
Which they do.
Liberia, and Sierra Leone.
That's right.
It said, and this is also interesting to me because they're talking about trying to get into Nigeria for the Boko Haram, remember all the missing girls? Okay, do you remember Jonathan Goodluck's wife?
Jonathan Goodluck, yes.
Who said that there are no girls missing. And after that, we have heard nothing from his wife again.
Probably put an Ebola gag over her.
This group is saying that there are no girls missing. And that there was just an excuse to get troops on the ground. So it said that Nigeria has new oil reserves that have been discovered. And so they wanted to get troops on the ground to protect the oil reserves. And then the second reason is because Sierra Leone is the world's largest supplier of diamonds. And they claim that for the past 4 months that the diamond workers have been on strike because that they have horrible working conditions and they're treated like slaves.
That's where they are.
So then they wanted troops on the ground to enforce the workers to get back to work, and if not, they're killing them off and just replacing them. So they said, when miners refuse to work, troops are sent in, even if they have to kill and replace them all. Their only desire is to get diamonds back flowing out of the country. Of course, to launch multiple campaigns to invade these countries separately would be too suspicious.
Right.
So therefore, when they have something like Ebola, then they can access the entire area simultaneously.
So once they get what they want, mysteriously the Ebola disease will
has a cure.
Die down.
Well, but they're going to use that here too,
Well,
of
then
course,
they'll have
to scare
to
people.
inject the Ebola cure to all the people in West Africa. They'll cut down their fertility.
Yes. Now that's a good point, because the reason number 3, they said, is in addition to stealing Nigerian oil and forcing Sierra Leone back to mining, the troops have been sent in to force vaccinations onto Africans who don't want it. They said 3,000 troops, which I reported on that quite some time ago.
I heard they were 4,000.
Well, they may be by now, but I know when I reported on it, they said 3,000. They said that they're being sent in to make sure that this poison continues to spread, because it is only spread through vaccinations.
Just like hepatitis C, just like HIV. That's right.
Yeah. So it says because the word is getting out, more and more Africans are refusing to visit the Red Cross. But the troops are there to force the fact, make them visit, and then of course once they get sick, then they're going to say there's an Ebola pandemic. And it said that in addition to this, they will protect the Red Cross from the Liberians and Nigerians because they know who the issues are causing the issues. So they need the troops in there to protect the Red Cross against the people that they're claiming to protect, but instead they're there to harm.
You know, I'm going to check that out because I have a friend in West Africa.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask him.
I think it's a good story. And then they said, last but not least, which I kind of said, that the appearance of this Ebola pandemic, should Americans not catch on, will be used to scare countless millions into taking the Ebola, and they call this again in quotes, vaccine, which is in reality, which is the pandemic. So now it says that they've started with stories of how it's been brought back to the U.S. and has appeared in Dallas, how white doctors were cured, but black people are not.
That's a fire concept.
This will mean that will make blacks want to get the vaccine because it appears that the cure is being held back from blacks. So the blacks will go out to try and get it, and then it will cause more problems. So then it says, ask yourself, if Ebola was really spread from person to person instead of controlled spread through vaccination, this is what you talked about, then why would the CDC and the U.S. government continue to allow flights in and out of these countries with absolutely no regulation or at all?
Exactly.
They are lying for their own benefit. There aren't enough voices out there with a platform to help share our reality. Hundreds of thousands have been killed, paralyzed, and disabled by these and other new vaccines all over the world, and we are finally becoming aware of it.
And Obama, with an African father, he should be ashamed of himself.
Well, we don't know what's going on with that either. I mean, who knows where he came from? He might have come from a test tube for all we know. Anyway, I just think that it was very interesting because supposedly this article is coming out of West Africa, West Liberia, I think, and they're trying to get people to understand what's really going on
I think
to
it's
save
true.
themselves. And we've talked about since Prince
Makes
William's
sense.
21st birthday party and the Queen and all her dressing up.
Queen of Africa.
That's right, how that they're trying to change what Africa is, scare everybody here in the U.S. I mean, they're causing world turbulence, like what you said, in preparation for this staged alien invasion. We have something we all have to fight against. That and our ISIS thing, which you probably got those later on.
I do have a story about that.
So anyway, they're trying to unite us against that so they can control us all. So with that said, go for it.
Well, just a confirmation of what I've been saying for many, many years. Scientists issue a dire earthquake warning for California.
I saw that one too.
A top earthquake scientist issued a dire warning Wednesday of the devastating impact an imminent earthquake could have on the state of California. Dr. Lucy Jones, now remember that name, Dr. Lucy Jones told the LA City Council that the next major earthquake could be more than the devastating Northridge earthquake that hit the city in 1994. Now, Lucy Jones, if you remember back about 10 years ago, she said that there'll be 3 major catastrophes in the U.S. First, she said 9/11 was the first one. Then she said a hurricane in the Gulf Coast, and then Katrina hit. And the third one she said was the destruction of Los Angeles. So that means that here she comes again, Dr. Lucy Jones, basically stating what the Illuminati's going to be doing.
It sounds like a ritual that's been planned out.
Lucy Jones, yeah, I've seen pictures of her. She reminds me of the first programmed monarch woman, Candy Jones.
Well, wasn't there the song "Diamonds in the Sky"?
Lucy in the Sky with
Lucy in
Diamonds.
the, yeah, and
Yeah.
that was a reference to, I think.
LSD.
Yeah. So maybe this is this Lucy.
All right, so first I'll give you a really serious story, and then I'll give you an information story. How do you think about that?
I don't know
I
yet.
want to give an update on ISIS, or now just IS, or is. How is you? Latest story, and was that this ISIS group, or I should say, Iraqi Air Force defectors who joined ISIS,
I saw that.
are learning to fly 3 Soviet MiGs that were captured in Syria. Now this was like, oh, now they're going to have an Air Force, and how horrible. They have 3 freaking MiGs from the 1970s that are falling apart. They're old and in need of repair. And these Iraqi Air Force people are training the ISIS people to fly them. They might as well have paper planes and fly, they would be more successful with that. But the story reminds me of 9/11, because you remember when the terrorists claimed, that they flew commercial jets, and they found this book at the airport, how to fly a plane, like, really? So it reminds me of the same kind of story, and I was thinking about that. Sometimes I think.
Once in a while.
And I was thinking, well, if they were real terrorists in 9/11, wouldn't they have arranged to use jumbo jets, like a 747 or a 777, and instead of using it in the morning when there's not too many passengers, like fly it in the afternoon when it's packed with passengers, and instead of targeting one specific building in a city, wouldn't they have aimed it at the downtown area, like at lunchtime, packed with people?
Yeah, just like a bomb thing, because they're all suicide anyway. That's what they claim.
Yeah, I mean, so like I was thinking of that, and like now it looks more ridiculous what they did and staged by the government instead of real terrorists. Because if they were real terrorists, they would have looked to make the most impact, the most damage, and not what they did.
Right, they wouldn't have aimed for one specific building.
Yeah, so that's what the whole thing, and this whole thing with Ebola, and oh, this one flew on a commercial flight, and this one was on a cruise ship. It's like,
That's silly.
how could that even
That just
happen?
keeps you're supposed to tune in every day for the newest segment, like a soap opera.
It is, and the thing is, what's bothering me is that when I read the news, it's like I could see how stupid and staged it is. Like even if this was a TV show, I wouldn't watch it.
Right.
Now, Bigfoot, and I'm not talking about my shoe size.
Okay, wait, before you get to your shoe size. About ISIS, I just want to tell you there was a thing on the news yesterday, I think it said that the U.S. will be in a war with ISIS for many years.
Of course they will.
So, I mean, So think on that one before we go on to your shoe size.
Okay, I'll start now.
Shoe size.
Oh, okay. You told me to start thinking about
Shoe
it.
size.
All right. Anyway, Bigfoot. Of course, we know there's Bigfoot in the U.S. and there's Sasquatch in Canada and there's the Yeti in Tibet and Himalayas. But did you know the Russians have their own version called the Alma?
Yes.
You did?
I know everything.
Oh, no, you don't. I know everything. Now, a Russian researcher says he's found evidence in the form of a piece of bark that almas not only exist, but wandering the forest outside of Moscow. Could be some of my family members.
Could be.
The almas, he says, are cosmopolitan. His name is Andrei Stroganov.
They named it?
No, that's the name of the researcher, Stroganoff. Like, that sounds
I
pretty
thought
good.
they named the Alma.
I could use some Stroganoff right now.
Maybe that's where it came from.
He
Maybe
told,
his family invented
okay, back to me. He told
I
them,
could make that in a cooking
what?
podcast.
An Alma Stroganoff?
Maybe.
You should write to him.
Oh.
He tells the Moscow Times, I'm not worried. They are benevolent and need our protection. He's a biophysicist, by the way, at the Agricultural Academy of Moscow. And he found a piece of tree bark near Moscow that appears to have been marked by a large primate. Again, could be a member of my family. Now, he believes that these scratches on the bark, which were 9 inches across, were not from a bear. He also claims to have confirmed the presence of almas during a recent visit to Chelyabinsk in the Urals, which is near Sverdlovsk. Again, my family connection. And according to I love that name, Stroganoff, in 2012 he performed a test on the samples sent to him and pointed to a bear, either a newly discovered species or some hybrid between brown and polar bears, according to National Geographic. But remember in Blue Blood book, my Blue Blood book, I said that these Sasquatch and Yeti, that they were a mix of human and bear. So that made total sense to me that they found bear DNA in it. That just confirms what I've been saying. But I also want to say that in the 1930s, the Soviet Army actually captured one of these creatures in the Central Asia area. And from what they described and DNA samples, it was more a Neanderthal. It was in Central Asia and parts of China and Russia and Kazakhstan. There are these pockets of Neanderthal that never. And there's a famous story of this village in Siberia where this man captured a female Neanderthal woman, had children with like 12 children, and those children married other humans, and they had more. And to this day, there's descendants of her.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things going on in Russia. I shall have to go back and investigate.
Is that it?
That's it.
I have a couple more to add, of course. Do you remember Eric Frein?
No.
That is the man who supposedly ambushed and shot two Pennsylvania state troopers.
Oh, yeah. He's still missing.
He's still missing. And so the reason I'm bringing this is for a couple of reasons. One, they can't find the plane. The MH, whatever it was.
Oh, I have a story about that, but I forgot to write it.
Oh, do you want to say that real fast?
Yeah, because this researcher, I think it was Australia, I'm not sure, he said that they're looking in the wrong way. Instead of looking in the ocean, they should look in the sky. Because he said there were satellite images that showed the, what do you call it, not the chemtrail, but the jet trail.
The jet stream?
The jet trail from the plane, that if they looked at those images, they could see where the plane went from the trail. But the authorities said they dismissed it. And this researcher says it will show either where it crashed or landed. So I think he knows it went to that Diego Garcia and that the trails would prove it, and that's why they're dismissing his claims as nonsense.
Right, interesting. All right, well, anyway, along the same line, now this reminded me of like the 9/11 things when they found the passports, because this fellow supposedly is eluding authorities. I don't even know for how many weeks this has been now.
A long time. But
they've been out searching for him in the woods of Pennsylvania, and they claim that it's around his family's property. But they somehow wound up at his campsite, and they found his journal. And in his journal, he talks about how he got shot around 11 p.m. and how he took it and how he dropped and he was surprised at how quick it was. And it goes on and on and on. I mean, it just doesn't sound like somebody with that kind of mindset.
Why would they leave the journal for someone to find?
Right. It's all hokey, in my opinion. But they said he's an expert marksman, And he has a grudge against law enforcement. He's in the woods around his parents' home in the Pocono Mountains. Now they have hundreds of law enforcement officers trying to find this guy still.
This is Pennsylvania,
This is Pennsylvania.
They're not too bright there.
But I mean, it still just makes no sense because they keep finding little things. It's like they want to make people be able to, legitimize why they have all these hundreds of law enforcement officials in Pennsylvania. I think they're looking for something else, and this guy is an excuse, or they're doing something out there, and they don't want people questioning it. But I think something else is going on in the woods of Pennsylvania.
Oh, I guarantee that.
I think you need to keep your eyes on this story. Now, continuing on with the military stories, the U.S. Navy, now this was an odd thing. They're turning to ultrasonic welding to make its uniforms lighter, stronger, and cheaper. Now, I never heard of this, but then it goes on to talk about overseas. There are two clothing manufacturers, one called Patagonia and one called North Face, that both sell jackets with welded seams, but the Navy's trying to figure out the process. And so the Navy has a huge grant to do this. Now, isn't that odd? The clothing companies overseas can do this, but our Navy can't figure it out? I thought that was very odd.
It is odd.
And then it goes on, this is a story a little bit later on, but I want to bring this one up because it's tied into this story. Oh, a futuristic skin-tight spacesuit that might shrink wrap the astronauts rather than have the big puffy ones filled with the gas. Now they have MIT researchers working on that, which kind of reminds you of what you hear about the alien spacesuits, how the suits are always very form-fitting. And so they're talking about how the temperature of the astronaut they'll kind of like put the person into it, and then the body temperature...
Like freeze dry.
Yeah, shrink wraps it, they're calling it, around it. And then like if you have, an injury or something, that the pressure changes, so you would have an automatic tourniquet. So out on the field they could do it. So it's talking about that kind of technology as well.
Yeah, but what happens if the astronauts have, gas problem and there's no room in the suit?
Well, they're trying to figure out all those things and work with the coils and heating them and all that. But again, this sounds to me exactly like alien technology and things that we're going to perhaps be seeing in the staged alien invasion. And why the Navy, if they're doing, on one hand, they're doing this kind of work, shrink wrapping the astronauts, and then the Navy doesn't
They just shrink wrap the government people.
Yeah, the Navy doesn't even know how to do welded seams. Well, the clothing companies, it sounds like that shouldn't be so difficult. Anyway, and then also mysterious lights still in the sky over Utah, and I'm bringing this up because they continue to talk about things that are flashing by. And this was a NASA, Patrick Wiggins, a NASA Solar System Ambassador.
Oh.
Have you ever heard of that?
I wanted to be that.
He's a NASA Solar System Ambassador to Utah. So I don't know if every state has a NASA Solar System Ambassador.
I never heard of it.
But I thought that was interesting, that they have to have that. He's saying it's a rock or a meteoroid that just was...
It keeps flying over.
Traveling through space. This is minding its own business. This is a quote from this NASA guy.
It just likes Utah.
The Earth got in the way, and the Earth's gravity kind of went, okay, come on down, hit the Earth's atmosphere. And of course, when it did, it got very, very hot and very, very bright.
Whoa,
it made a big flash, traveled well across the sky, headed to the south, and then was breaking up. So apparently, if there have to be ambassadors to the states from NASA, I think they're going to have to be addressing a lot of these things.
Well, I'm the galactic ambassador, which
this
is
guy,
bigger than a solar
This
system.
guy says it's a bolide, which I never heard of.
I think his whole story is bullshit.
Bullock.
Whatever.
Bullock, which basically means a bright meteor that explodes. So I wanted to bring that one forward because I never heard of all this solar system ambassador stuff.
I've never heard. They made it up.
I think so. Then we have researchers talking about the ocean floor again. Now they're talking about seamounts. Have you heard of that before?
It sounds very disgusting.
Well, it's not. So don't get too...
Okay.
Yeah. Reserve that for later on in my news. Because I have something very disgusting to tell you.
Oh, no. Really?
I do. All right. So using radar data from NASA and the European Space Agency satellites, they are now creating a map of the underwater mountains that are a height of just under 1 mile tall. And those are called seamounts, which I never heard of that before. It says right now they thought there were only 5,000 of them at around 1.2 miles high. But using the lower cutoff point, they now say they're up to 25,000 more seamounts.
Where?
And all over the ocean floor. Because they're talking about how that we have not explored the ocean floor. Which is, again, going to lead us to what's inside the Earth.
Right.
So they're bringing that forward. And then, now this was fascinating considering, you remember your friend the archaeologist in Bolivia who told you about finding the Cyclops and stasis.
Yes, right.
Okay. Now NASA is trying to figure out a way to cut the cost of a human expedition to Mars by, guess what? Putting the crews in stasis.
Right.
They're claiming that they're going to put them into a deep sleep called a torpor, T-O-R-P-O-R, which would reduce astronauts' metabolic functions with existing medical procedures. Now they're saying that this occurs naturally in cases of hypothermia, and they're already doing that with hospital patients who are having an issue or they want to try
and coma.
Yes, try to keep them alive. They're saying the longest times they can do that right now is for 7 days. But for human Mars missions, they want to push it to up to 180 days.
That's 6 months, isn't it?
That's right. This says they can live inside smaller ships with fewer amenities. They don't have to deal with food, gear.
What happens when they get there?
Well, it says one design includes a spinning habitat to provide a low-gravity environment to help offset bone and muscle loss. And it would also cut their payload from 400 tons to about 220 tons, so they could go faster. But the issue is the stasis, like you were talking about, which your archaeologist friend said that he saw, and if they're talking about it, we know they've already done it.
Yeah, but that Cyclops had been there thousands of years.
Well, and that's my point, is that they're just now telling people about this, which means they already have it.
First of all, not going to happen because they already have ships that can travel there in a minute.
Well, they'd use the frequency matches like we always talk about. But anyway, it's just interesting. They're just getting people used to new terminology, in my opinion, and things that can happen.
I'd like to be in stasis for a few days, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Then we have Mimas. One of Saturn's moons may have an underground, life-friendly ocean.
I've heard that before.
Yeah, and we'll keep hearing this about all the things that are underground in all kinds of places. So this is a moon around Saturn that they said at first they just thought it was rock, but now it has a specific wobble, which means it's very indicative that there is an ocean below it between 15 and 18 miles beneath the moon's surface.
I have a specific wobble, so does that mean I have an ocean inside of me?
Could be. And then we have Denmark. We're going to move on. Now this was interesting because on your Facebook page I see you posted something about Denmark being such a friendly nation.
Yes, but it really isn't because I've been there a few times.
Well, it had like 100 comments with people with all kinds of things.
Were they mean to me?
You tell me. But listen to this. Denmark is now moving to ban bestiality. Apparently it's been legal there, and in the other
everything's legal there.
And in all the other Scandinavian countries as well as Germany, except now Norway, Sweden, and Germany have finally banned the practice. So now Denmark thinks, oh, maybe we should too.
Well, they're going to lose a lot of Vikings at that.
Apparently, because they said that there is now an underground animal sex tourism in Denmark, and they're concerned about that issue. Now, here's your disgusting story.
I mean, this wasn't it?
That wasn't it. That was the prep for the disgusting story. The disgusting story is that they now have poop pills.
They've always had poop pills.
They have?
You need to make you poop?
No. Pills made out of poop. Pills, capsules
don't even.
Capsules filled with poop.
People, I'm so sorry. I had no idea she was going to do this.
Now, here in the last few years, we've been hearing about something called C. diff, which is basically Clostridium difficile. This is an infection that happens when people usually have been on a lot of antibiotics and they pick it up in hospitals and it gives them diarrhea, so it's kind of like it keeps going around and around. And I told you a couple years ago that they were starting to do the fecal transplants, where they would take poop from one person,
don't even go
put it into another person.
I won't listen.
So they're claiming that people, listen to this, people are doing their own fecal transplants, that they're going to their family and friends, and then using enemas to transfer one person to another.
Who thinks of such things?
I think it's all more show. But and again, I don't know where they're going, except we talked about the Illuminati and satanic ritual using, poop stuff as, legitimate in their rituals. So I don't know if this is why they're talking about that. So since all that's happening, and right now it says they deliver the fecal transplants through colonoscopies, nasogastric tubes, and even enemas. It says they all have potential risks and discomfort for the patients. They said just getting the tube down is a problem, and that doctors worry that if people gag and vomit, they could inhale fecal matter.
Wait a second, they do it through the mouth?
The tubes, I guess, and they put it down through the...
Why don't they put it the other way?
Well, this is, I say, it's all bizarre. It was bizarre when I first started hearing about these fecal transplants. And
you need to stop looking these up.
They come to me, and they're still talking about it. Now, this is just absolutely astounding. So in order to solve that issue, what they're doing is they're screening, I guess they're donors. I don't know how you'd be a fecal
Poop donor, a poop donor.
I don't know. They screen them, and then somehow or another, let me see what they do. I want to be sure I know you want all the facts. Okay, yeah, there's carefully screened stool donors, and they're filtered, diluted, and frozen. Now, wouldn't that take out the good stuff, whatever they're considering as good stuff?
Think about it.
Doesn't even make sense. Then it's encapsulated. And then on 2 consecutive days, they give each patient at 1, it sounds like, or maybe more, acid-resistant capsules containing fecal material that's been collected. And then if their symptoms didn't improve within 72 hours, they were offered a second course of treatment.
That gives a whole new meaning to the term "eat shit."
That's what the first line was, but I didn't want to say it.
Well, I did it for you.
I know that.
You have 2 minutes left.
I have 2 minutes left?
Better hurry up.
Okay. Anyway, I just thought that was just so bizarre. So anyway, it's just, anyway, you're not supposed to do your own fecal transplant, so don't start that.
Hello, I'd like to come over for a dinner and bring your own enema. Thanks.
No, not an enema. I guess now it's pills or something.
Whatever.
I don't know, maybe just collection
Anyway,
buckets.
that's disgusting. Come to our January class. We have to hurry.
I get poop pills?
What?
Poop pills?
Bring your own poop pills and
We're
enemas.
not going to give them to you. We're not going to give you enemas. We're not doing it. Sorry.
Yeah.
We have our limits.
Yeah.
You can watch nude news, but we're not doing poop pills.
And then
After that, we'll keep you informed. January's next. Pay-per-view, like our Facebook page. Can't wait to...
I'll be in Czech Republic, Poland,
That's later on. Right now,
Austria.
I just want them to like my Facebook page. I'm on 200,000 likes.
Yeah, I want 2 million.
On
on
2
mine.
million, 100,000 likes.
All right. Well, that's all for now. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.